I'm here. I'm, I feel like I hear you loud and clear. Yo, we live.
Oh, that we are. That we are. What is going on, people? It is Friday. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. What Kwanzaa, whatever it is that you got going on at
Happy
this.
birthday.
Happy birthday to those who have birthdays around this time. Um, Mine just came and went. Praise the Most High for that. Enjoyed that. And now we're here with you. I don't know what that's about. All right, let me remove that. All right, cool. Just doing some technical stuff things. Let's play AI Jonah, and we can get into this conversation about the
AIJ.
year in reflection, holding truth. Yeah, wherever that's at, I'll find it. Is
Yo,
this it?
check the mic, 1-2, Beacon is the name. Lights up the city, ain't playing no games. Joel Simmons and Michael Seville, the vision is clear. Dropping knowledge, conquering all of your fear. Beacon, that's the sound of the future. The main hosts are here, they built the whole structure. Community strong, we rise from the ground. The beacon power up, yeah, time to look up.
That's it.
All right, all right. Now we can get it started. Get started in here. What's going on, people? It is Community Beacon. I am Palm Beach Mike here, your North Florida real estate guide, or North Palm Beach County real estate guide, not North Florida, Northern Palm Beach County, located here in Palm Beach Gardens. And of course, on the other side of the screen, we have my brother from another mother. It is the Joel Simmons of the Tenacity Foundation. Appreciate you all for checking in each and every week or whenever you can. Um, how's it going, brother?
Man, doing well. Doing well. Appreciate that. Appreciate the love and everything. Glad to be able to be here, man. Thank you for the graces last week. For those of y'all who don't know, my grandmother passed away, and we ended up having our homegoing services on last week. So we had to run a rerun on last week, but we laid grandmother down, and man, what a way to go out. She just absolutely embodied strength and resolve. And coming off of, we were talking about resiliency, and we started to dive into resolve. Coming off of that resolve conversation, my grandmother just embodied resolve, embodied it. And she produced such a magnificent legacy in her life. And I think that in her passing, we got an opportunity to really feel what that looked like, especially on the day of the homegoing service when so many words were spoken. So definitely appreciate you, brother, for coming out and being there with me on that Friday night. And once again, man, I want to give you a shout out for being able to make it 365 more days to another big birthday. Yeah,
Yeah,
my man, looking younger,
absolutely
getting older. That's what I'm talking about.
crazy. It's crazy in that way. Definitely time wise older, but definitely feeling youthful. Who was it? I think it was my father. My father called me on my birthday and he was like, "How you feeling, man? How you feeling? Feeling like an old man?" I said, "Nah, surprisingly not." Young Spry, Chris and I went and we did our birthday tradition. It's going on almost a decade now where we go to the gym. Oh man, it's such an awesome thing to do. Tradition that we have where we get in there. Lots of, interestingly enough, what we're going to be talking about today, lots of reflection, lots of going back and forth about, our years, what we look for in the future, like what's our projection, what are our goals, and then of course we get a chance to get in there and work on our strength. So Every year we get in there, we do deadlifts, 315 pounds. I'm not discounting 1 pound. And we do it our whatever year it is that we are. And this year probably was one of the easier years for me. It was, and that just came from preparation. I started maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and it makes a huge difference too because I went in there, no belt, no nothing, just let's just get it in. And we just started lifting, did it 43 times. It only took me 4 sets. And he was like, "What do you want to do?" I was like, "Let's just go up. let's let's use some more weight because right now I'm just playing with this stuff." So we had time for that. Did some uh, did some bench presses. Man, I missed 315 by like, and the interesting thing about the missing the 315 because up until 315, like the weight was really light, and then 315 I lifted differently, right? And it's just all it takes is this one split second of I someone attributed to a fear, but it's more so of trying to control something, right? Like like over controlling, over managing something. So which was indicative of this entire year and a lot of the things that revealed itself to me within this year, which was the my attempts to over manage. So and it all comes through in the weights. This year was so interesting how the different context that we look at life as we go right into this topic, the different contexts and different ways of how we do life, you'll start to see it manifest in different contexts, um, in like little subtle ways, but according to the context, right? Like so when I'm saying I'm in the gym and just in that lifting, there was this over control, this management when I'm going and doing something different or getting uncomfortable, really, right? Because up until that point, everything was comfortable. I've already done the 275. We were doing it with our feet up off of the bench. You're right. Then we went up to 295, feet still off of the bench. So technically, if you go up to 315 and you dig in, right, it should be an easy lift. And it turned out not to be an easy lift, not because I don't have the strength or the technique to do it, but more so me attempting to, as I get into this uncomfortable position, was to make this certain adjustment. And it's interesting because things that we tend to see that bother us are often just things that we are having going on within ourselves. And I always used to watch like NFL players, and towards the end of or NBA players, they get up to the free throw line and they miss free throws, or towards the end of the game where they have the game on the line, especially on defense. I would say this is when I tend to notice it more because I was a defensive player in high school. I would say, "Well, how did you break your assignment? Like, how do you do that?" It's because you can practice for those moments, but you don't know what it's like to be in those moments. So whenever you see someone who's at the top of their game, happened a lot during this high school season for whatever reason, football, but definitely I saw it in college as well, where they missed their assignment, right? And you're like, wait a minute, you ran this route 1,000 times, but they've never been under this pressure. They get this uncomfortable moment, and it's just this one slight hesitation, and then boom, it's over. You didn't make the tackle. You were tackling this entire time, and then all of a sudden you decided, "Oh, I'm not gonna wrap up." Right? Like I've been practicing to wrap up. I've done it all. Coach made me run when I wasn't wrapping up, but here we go. When the game is on the line, I don't wrap up. So it's interesting this over management and attempting to take control when really what I found is that you really don't have control. It's almost this false sense of safety that you have in these things. Um, I think as we close out this year, just for me personally, I'll just explain some of this framework that I use as I close out the year, and I'll definitely have to give Dean Jackson, who's probably the best marketing coach in real estate, his just due because he taught me this years ago. And it's the framework is called RIP, right? RIP. I don't know where he got it from, but it sounds good. Or RIP to the year, I guess. I don't know. But what the acronym stands for is reflection, inflection, and projection. So as I know, as I go through this conversation, there's going to be like an amalgamation. There's going to be a combination of all these things happening at the same time because I've been doing it for like a month and a half already, right? Like for the last month and a half, there's been a lot of reflection. There's been a lot of inflection. There's been a lot of projection because that's just how I curate my life. And so, yeah, so a lot of that happened along with this connections course with Joe Hudson that I just finished up last week, which was awesome. So I get a chance to get into that. Shouts out to Joe Hudson. There was like over 180 people in this connections course. He calls it the uncourse, right? Because he doesn't want it to be like the courses that people's, he doesn't want you to come in there with that thought process surrounding it. And it was awesome to actually get in there and connect with yourself, connect with others, the space for it. And then we had this rapid coaching session with him, which I thought is crazy. And I think one day, maybe next year, our community beacon, we could start doing some we can put some videos up there and just start to kind of go through it. I don't know. We'll figure it out at that point. But of the 180 people, I raised my hand and I'm just like, hey, he's not gonna pick me. You know what I mean? And I'm just sitting there going through it and just holding the space for people. And then all of a sudden I hear Mike Seville, Palm Beach. And I'm like, I'm looking around like, who, me? And he definitely, but I had a chance to have that quick coaching session, 10 to 12 minutes. And I mean, this guy read me like a book in those 12 minutes. Like initially, just really understood the thought process that I was applying to it. I mean, that's why he is who he is. The thought process applied to it, the getting down to the crux of what it was I was going to be able to understand. I'm sure he could have went a lot deeper, but what was the ability for me to receive, right? Because we can tell a lot of people a lot of things. We tend, in my experience, a lot of people come from this authoritative, I'm better than you, not better than you, but I'm up here on this level and can give us information on it. But to meet people on the level to where they can receive is an awesome gift, and the ability for him to like pay attention and not, there's a judging thing that goes on that, and for him not to have that, which I was like, okay, that's what's going on. The ability to empty yourself. I think that's awesome. So we'll do this reflection, this inflection and projection from my framework. Of course, brother, this is not my show. This is the Community Beacon. What you got going on for this show?
Man, first, I want to dive into some of this stuff that you brought to the table already. I mean, my brain is just like firing off right now. I think that this year, in a wrap up, year in reflection, growth, and what comes next, it's been beautiful. Been beautiful. Something that I'll bring up if the time permits is just what December of 24 looked like for me, right? Because December of 24, what that did for me was set the course of 25 in such a major way. It changed the course of everything for me by doing such a detailed job in December 24. So, in looking back and reflecting on what I did in December 2024 and the growth that I had in December 2025, or excuse me, in the year of 2025. And then as far as it goes for what I'm looking for next, right? And that just comes back to my strategic plan for 2026. So that's what I'm looking at. And I'm ready to engage to some degrees on that, minding the time. And definitely I want to be able to, speak with you about some of these things that you've already brought up, because the conversational points are already good, right? I mean, I want to hear more about the overmanagement piece, right? That you had already brought up and what that really looked like to you. And if you're able to just like kind of break it down from your standpoint, your perspective of what that looked looks like. And the reason why I say that is because there's many times when we're doing something, and this is my perspective. I don't want to input this as yours, but just the piece that I was getting from the overarching words that you use over managing is like sometimes it's like I'm doing too much. It just needs to be in like a flow. So maybe I'm just doing too much, and I'll have to pull it back. Like, yo, slow down. All right. It's not really difficult. This is not hard. You're overthinking. There's something else going on here, and you need to take a couple clicks back, or you need to just stand still for a moment, like Moses. Like, I did everything that you told me to do, God. I made the water turn to blood. I made the amphibians come up on the. I did all these things that you told me to do. I pulled all these people out. None of them liked me, and now I'm sitting in front of this Red Sea, and I got mountains on my left, mountains on my right, and Pharaoh's coming to kill us all, and all the people are upset with me. What do you want me to do? You know what I mean? It's like, you're doing too much, Moses. Just chill out for a moment. Hang tight. Remember that staff I gave you? Watch me work now. Let me cook.
Yeah.
If God was here, let me cook now. Let me cook. I ain't asked you to do more than that. It's like that's kind of what I got out of the whole, over management. So I want to hear your take on it and what it was that you recognized, what it was you learned, and how you processed through it to get to that awareness.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, how it was revealed to me was during this connections course.
Hmm.
We were, this is 180 people who are, you know, and most of them took place that they were from Silicon Valley. So a lot of these founders and co-founders um and really it was mostly about the feelings aspect of it. But once again, you can apply a lot of this into any context. And it's interesting that you brought up that story in regards to watch me and let me work, because we often tend to want to do other people's job. Like in most businesses, we are the bottleneck, the owner, or you know what I mean, or even in your job description, you're the bottleneck within that. Attempting to manage and overmanage whatever it is that that sometimes you do it so much you forget to be doing what it was that you're supposed to be doing, right? Like what you may be managing a certain business or doing a certain job or have a certain job description, but the lack of trust that you have in other people. And the crazy thing, not that the interesting about it is that it's really a lack of trust in yourself. Because if you had the ultimate trust in yourself, then what you would do is you would do everything it was that you were supposed to do, and then you would wait and hit that staff, or you would support. You would be the support for all the other people who are probably panicking at that moment. I would imagine if I'm Moses and if I'm panicking and I'm having these experiences with the Most High, and these other people, what do you think is going on with these other people? But if I have this total trust in the Most High and the total trust in myself, I know that I only could do what I'm supposed to do. This is the agency part of it. And brother, that was probably one of the key words and terms of the year that you brought up several months ago, like taking agency, as opposed to now wanting to, which it can happen, shrink into some other position. Now I want to do this, I want to do that, as opposed to supporting. This is like taking agency and being whatever and becoming whatever it is that you, and I found out about that too. This is all happening at the same time. So the managing, we try to attempt to manage, and here's the interesting. I think it's only over when I'm attempting to manage somebody else's stuff, which I was doing. Like I want to manage somebody else's reactions. I want to manage someone else's feelings. I want to manage and really and the only way you can really do that is almost through manipulation, because it really can't happen that way. You can hold space for people. You can be with people while these things are going on. We can start to give our, whatever it is, but we can't actually manage whatever it is they're having, right? We can reflect on them. We can hope for them to see that it resonates within them. But for us to actually try to instill something that they can't see or it's not there, it's not going to happen. They can, and then here's the interesting part: the other person, especially if you are, they look to you as a certain way, like your kids, they look to you as you can start to, they can pretend like what you're doing is the right thing, right? And most of it ends up coming out of lack of wanting safety, real so fear, right? So it's like they're doing it or they're reacting in a certain kind of way because they think that this is the way that, oh, this is the way that dad wants me to act, right? Which is really them going against themselves because we're just teaching them now to start to manage certain things within themselves when really we're the ones that's not managing it. Um,
Let me
I don't know,
answer.
brother. What you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, man, this is a real good topic right here, especially for you mentioned in workplace as well as owners. But as you were speaking, something else was revealed to me because this is something that I've noticed, especially with my clients. My clients pay me a pretty good dollar to be able to help them navigate certain situations, which makes me basically a partner. So I become a partner with my clients. A lot of times we end up becoming friends, and that's far beyond this as well. It's just relationship development. However, as they are giving me everything because I ask everything, that we can't do what we do. I can't be your partner and help you if you don't give me information. I need information. So I ask them everything. You say, hey, I'm thinking about such and such. I'm going to ask you, well, what is such and such? What does such and such cost? How much do you have prepared for such and such? I'm just going to go through this array of questions, and there's definitely a trust there. What I've noticed is that in the multiple clients that I have, is that the trust builds so strongly. And I would say that our viewers should be able to understand, Mike. I know you would understand. Our viewers should understand that when you're at this level of coaching, or essentially it should be any level of coaching, but when you're at this level of coaching or consulting, that you have to give information that is personal to you or the business for someone to actually help you to navigate through whatever your circumstances are. Because sometimes we're talking about something that's business and the block isn't business at all. It's personal. It has nothing to do with business. And once you get that personal thing out the way, then the professional piece becomes very clear. So for those of you all that are out there that are coaches and you're like, hey, I'm coaching somebody and I keep running into this block where I'm helping somebody to navigate through something. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, I don't even want to do that. And you've already spent months and months on hand trying to figure that out. One of the things that happens is, and we all have to be very keen on that, is that by having that trust, by gaining that trust, we have to be very cautious not to guide somebody outside of their own pathway. And so, like, while you were talking about that, I was like, 100%. What's up, Tony? Glad you joined in. It's something that we have to really understand, is that the idea is to help somebody else to reach their goals, their vision, and then also to expose the things that they are not saying, because those are the blocks that they have. And the reason why they can't get through is because they're hiding those things from themselves. And so I love what you said when you started talking about management, because you said management, and I want to add the word sometimes. Management can lead to sometimes, or can lead to manipulation, right? I mean, there is a management without manipulation, but then there is absolutely a controlled management that has some sort
But
of.
what's a management? Just to jump in, what's a management without manipulation in regards to somebody else?
So, like, I'll refrain to an employer employee relationship where management is follow up. It's like, hey, I need you guys to stack the papers inside of the room, right? Or we can make it more detailed. Hey, listen, at 3 o'clock, the truck's going to come through. They're going to deliver paper. This is what I need to happen. You're going to go outside, get the papers, and you're going to stack them up into the office room, right?
Yeah.
So they can
Yeah.
be prepared for tomorrow. And then you leave it be.
Yeah.
And the only thing that you're going to do is the follow up, the follow up. Later on, you look at your clock, it's 3 o'clock. You got a meeting at 3, and then you pass by Joe in the hallway at 4 o'clock. And you're like, hey, Joe, what's going on? If Joe doesn't immediately say, hey, listen, I stacked all those papers up, you're like, yo, Joe, did the papers come in? Yeah. I stacked them up. They're inside. That's it. That's management. That's management. We start to
Yeah.
go
And
beyond
I
that.
love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You,
And I was
you,
gonna say I love that piece of it, and to make the distinction of it, because most of those, when we talk about managing it and managing our time and managing certain resources, it's about those logistics that you just mentioned. So it's not like there's not a time to manage something, right? But when we start talking about managing emotions and managing things, that's something different. But when we're talking about managing logistics and managing certain resources, because in order for you to, possibly in order for you to do me to do X, X, and O, I would like to see you do X's and O. In order for us to have a meeting together, we both need to get to the meeting on time. So that managing portion is more so like establishing the expectations, these expectations, and then we go back. I'm not a big follow up person, right? I think once we establish these expectations, unless there was something, it's really a learning experience, because especially with the person, because okay, well, I didn't tell this person that, so then I get a chance to give you that information and see how it lands. But yeah, I'm with that, brother. Go ahead.
oh man, 100%. That was a great question. And I just like the way that the positioning that you are positioning the management into manipulation, or over management, I should say. I think will be more specific, not necessarily management if management is done clearly, right? The over management, which would get into micro, maybe even micromanagement, where we are looking for someone to do X, Y, Z every single step of the way, kind of like Big Brother standing over their shoulder, or even asserting how a person should feel about whatever it is. I'm kind of picking up a little bit of that from you. Then I 100% agree, because at that point in time, we're trying to control the outcome, and it's not for us to control the outcome. The outcome will be what the outcome is. You will find out what kind of soup you have after you've taught the chef how to prepare it, right? You teach the chef, hey, listen, this is how you prepare it. These are the ingredients. This is how long you do it. Da 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 da. Now you got to let them go cook, because if not, then you are still the chef. You can't run the business. You can't go greet the customers. You can't do all those things because you're too busy cooking the soup. So you need to teach the person how to cook the soup. Let them cook, and then you move on out the way. If it doesn't come out good, then you go back and you have a conversation with them. What happened? Let's work this out. Let's figure what's going on. All right, man. It was a pinch. It was a pinch of salt. Not a cup. You know what I mean? No big deal. All right. And maybe you could use 2 pinches, but I mean, you work that out on your own. So I love that, because sometimes what ends up happening is, as owners, as coaches, all the coaches out there, you can end up being in a position where you are manipulating your workers or your clients into doing the thing that you envision them to do. And at
Yeah.
that point in time, you are 1000% the bottleneck. The reason why it won't go through. And you possibly, if you're talking about coach to client relationship, it's possibly the reason why you're not holding on to your clients.
And real quick, in regards to this coaching aspect, because I really believe like 99% of people shouldn't be coaching. I just realized that. But and let me tell you one of like the little things that I've seen people do. And this is how it manifests and it comes out. A person who says, and I just wrote a couple things down because it really revealed itself to me in this conversation. When someone says, I want more for them than they want for themselves, I would take a pause. it's awesome when a coach can tell, or a person, whatever it is, they can, even in real estate, it's the same thing with these clients. Same thing if you were an attorney, it's the same thing with your attorney. Like, I would imagine, like, we have a fiduciary duty, right? Within that, within our ethics and so on and so forth. But when you're coming from a place of, I want more for them than they want for themselves. If you've ever said that phrase, I want you to take a pause. Because what is that? And where is that? What's the next logical step that's going to lead to? Or it doesn't even have to be logical. It's really emotional. What's the next emotional step that this is going to lead to if you want something for them more than they want for themselves? Interestingly enough, even as a parent, done it before as well. I want more for Elijah than I want. I can see great things in these people, right? Because I see the great things in myself. So I can see that. Man, I can see Elijah is such and such, man. And I can be a light in guiding him for that to be revealed to himself. But if I get to the point where, and I'm acting on, I want it more for him than I want for myself, all that's going to lead to is resentment, dislike, eventually no movement. I get a chance to reveal, like, be a mirror and show him by asking these questions. You spoke about trust. This is when Joe spoke about building trust. When I hear building trust, for me, in my experience, it's about a person who allows a space where the other person can be who they are. How do you do that? You become like this emptiness to where this person reflects off of you. So now, as a I don't want to use coach or consultant or even real estate agent. As an advisor, I can start to ask different questions so that this thing is being revealed to you. And it's not just these surface level questions. The deeper the question, the more trust, right? And it also reveals, like, how much trust you have from that person. Okay. If I'm doing real estate and a person it's interesting, and now you get this light turned on you, off on you, where I completely understand it now. If a person says to you, and this is I don't I want to buy a house. Okay, that's great and dandy, cool. Or what's your credit score? Okay, well, I don't want you to run it. I don't want you to run my credit score. I think it's about, Credit Karma says this. Well, Credit Karma is not the most accurate thing. Like, there's certain things on it that we're not going to see. Interestingly enough, I probably already know if we're having a consultation. However, this is just for, oftentimes this is a check and clarification, because I don't want to assume, right? So it's like, so what? Well, I don't want to. So can we just, when I send in this information, can we just, there's no trust that has been engaged. There's nothing there. So at this point in time, it's going to be a lot of chasing and convincing. And those clients are probably more apt to leave you because you haven't established that. So the deeper the questions that we have, the deeper the trust, especially in this context, right? Trust can also be established by actually, it comes from almost like friction, like getting involved, doing something together, like how the brother and I got together. We we got together, we were doing life, and we overcame it together. This, whatever goal it was that we had at the time, right? We came in together as a group. We got over it, and it's like, okay, since we came to join some, life is happening at this time. A lot of real things are going on, but because we got together and then we were, and during this time, we were transparent, we were clear, we had integrity, and we said, you know what? Because at any point in time, anybody can give up, right? Think about this in your relationships, guys. It's hard, everybody, I don't want a struggle relationship. I just want the soft life. Well, how can I trust you if you just come in on the soft life aspect of it? How can you trust me? Because you may not necessarily see what my real character is. And then the only time we'll see the character is when we are going through something. And then you have a chance to reveal it. That's really the only way you can test character. It's not what I say or what I'm gonna do or how the information I would give to somebody else. It's what else. So that's another way that trust can be involved. Another way, and I'm gonna stop harping on this because there's something that I really want to get to in regards to reflection, was I am responsible for fill in the blank. if your coach is responsible for your result, as if they're going to will you to this result, or you're looking for them to will you to something, right? You see a strong brother like Joel, and he's doing this thing, and he's gotten through X. Like, you've heard his story, right? If you think that just because you heard his testimony, his story, that it's going to help you, it's going to will you on your own journey without you necessarily having to put in some type of effort. I don't care at what amount that you're spending on these coaches. You could go to Tony Robbins and spend $100,000. I think that's what he was charged last time I heard. Please don't sue me if that's not correct, Tony, but it was up there for a session, right? Allegedly. How about I say that? Allegedly. And to me, he's probably one of the foremost neurolinguistic programming coaches in the world. I mean, his results show for himself. So he's going to be able to do certain things, the swish pattern. He's going to be able to do X, X, and O, these things that are going to intelligently have your mind thinking and shifting in a certain direction. But at some part in time, your heart and your gut got to come together with it. Otherwise, it may last. And this is what happens when it may last for a certain amount of time, but it's going to wear off because you're not in alignment with it. All the facts and figures or whatever is going to point you in the right direction. But if your heart and your gut aren't into it, it's not to it. And if your coach is telling, or if your authority figure or the person who you look to is telling you that, coach, pastor, real estate agent, attorney, whoever it is, if they're telling you that they are responsible for your fill in the blank, I would look at it a different way. And I would look to myself to say, well, when did I stop trusting me to get this thing done?
Yeah.
When did I stop listening to me? When did I stop abandoning me? It's great to have a mentor and a coach and a guide or advisor, or whatever it is, a pastor, whatever it is. But at some point in time, you get a chance to look at, when did I stop trusting me, right? To where I can't figure this thing out, where I'm not in alignment, or all these things on the line at the same time. When did I start abandoning me, right? When to believe that this is the only way, that this person's way is the only way, as I have my own journey. There's 8 billion people, I think is what it was. There's 8 billion journeys, right? I wouldn't trade it for nobody, and nobody should trade it for me. No, all your journeys, because what it reveals to you is this unique purpose that you have, not special. You get a chance to check out special as well, because I don't know. I do know why, but we have a want to feel like we're special. No, but once you start to understand that this journey you're on, you become unique in that way, because it's a unique journey, and there's no comparison. There's no better. There's no less. There's no nothing. It's just like, hey, I'm on this unique journey, and here's the kicker: once you start to actually be in alignment with that journey, everything else is just extra and added to the pie. You start to see these different opportunities pop up. I think this is when favor is being put upon you, because you start to recognize this unique pathway that I have to go. My son can't do it for me. My mother can't do it for me. My father can't do it for me. Whatever. It's just this. And these people just simply illuminate, right? I'm gonna give the brother a shout out. Shout out to the brother, because I love him to death. What the brother does for me is he illuminates these things for me, right? So I'm talking to Joe. the brother Joel illuminates these things for me. I don't need him to take up my baggage. I don't need him to do that. I just need him to continue illuminating it for me, right? And in the way that he does, and I recognize that, and it just so happens that he's him, Beethoven, Lou, all like they tend to just illuminate it a lot, right? But I still find illumination in any interaction that I'm with, right? Paul, my son, littlest Paul just be illuminating it to me, as far as what my journey and what uniqueness is, right? Not to say that he's little, because he's definitely a bright ball, right? But if I meet you in the gym, we have a conversation, I'm listening, because I've been having this thing where people are coming into the gym wanting to like give me information or something, and which I love. But what I'm really looking at is the illumination about how what this unique path that I'm on. Like, oh, okay, that's more information. It's more light, right? For me to take in everything that's going on. Like your light, my light is just more light. So I would behoove people. I digress. I would behoove people to look at those little how we sneak these things in. I'm responsible for this person's X, X, and O. Well, what am I avoiding? I want more for you than you want for yourself. When you really say it out loud, it's almost madness to me. Like, how can you want more for me than I want for myself? Now I'm going down this slippery slope. All right, brother.
Mm. I like this. I like this. So, reflection, right? Are you able to hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, reflection, a year in reflection, and we're talking about these things, and we already started going to a deep dive into management, right? And really, we are diving not just into management, right? But we've touched on agency, we've touched on being, self awareness, all these types of things is what we're talking about. And even in the resources that we utilize, being able to still be able to see that they are resources. These are tools that are at our hands. These are, studies, they're guides, um, they're helps that we have. And then I think about the word reflection, which is what came up to my mind, right? This episode is about a year in reflection. And reflection can mean an image that is seen in like a mirror or some type of shiny surface, like you're gazing into a crystal clear pond and you see your reflection, the image of yourself, right? Or you could be looking in your mirror in the morning if you have a mirror, right? Or you could be reflecting, right, on or thinking about consequences that have arisen or situations, right? But down that vein, we find that reflection is serious thought or consideration. And so, a year in reflection, we're taking serious thought and consideration of the things that we have learned, the things that we have spoken about, the people that we have spoken with. And when I think about serious thought or consideration, I do think about illumination. I do. I think about illumination because I believe that knowledge is a symbol of illumination, right? I believe that there's one way to illuminate the mind is through, it's in three parts, but it's through knowledge, which is the assertion of education or knowing, right? Knowledge is the act of knowing, right? And then there is the understanding aspect of it, which is the conversion of knowledge, right? Whichever part of knowledge that is. But when you become knowing of whatever it is, then and you come to a point where you are able to utilize it and you're able to frame it, right? You're able to depict inside your mind what it is that you're speaking of or seeing, to the extent that you know, then that becomes understanding, right? Like knowledge could be walking, or the knowledge could be the act of having learned how to walk. Understanding would be that of being able to utilize what you know to actually do it. And then the third part will be wisdom, which is knowing when and where and how to walk, right? So I'm not just going to walk on a steel beam 100, a hundred stories high in the air simply because I know how to walk, right? I would hope that I understand that the consequences of imperfect walking or inability to walk in a straight line or inability to consider wind gust or inability to consider the depth perception or inability to consider if there is some type of fear of heights or inability. I can go on and on and on, that all of those things would combined would tell me what is the wise choice. I'm going to go ahead and hook myself to something so that if I do make a misstep, I can be safe. I have some type of net of security. So it's like those three different phases. And so like that becomes illumination. And there's a scripture that teaches us that the just, they pursue a path of light and they shine more and more until a perfect end. So there's like this pursuance of illumination. So I love the word choice that you use, Mike, about illumination, because I believe that having this type of illumination, it assists us in doing greater works and being accountable to ourselves. Um, Having that agency, being able to march according to those orders, our own orders. So a year of reflection is like this taking serious thought and consideration. And as we take, as we pointed out, one or two smaller topics, I know that there's so many other topics, thousands, hundreds of thousands of topics that we could discuss. It doesn't, I don't know that it matters how many topics we discuss. Because at the end of the day, if we were to take simply the illumination, the reflection of the things that we have uh, done, learned, experienced throughout this year, and we were to take serious thought or consideration over these things, I believe that there will be some level of illumination, whether that's in knowing, understanding, or actually gaining some type of wisdom. And all three of those would be beneficial to growth. Back in your hands.
Yeah, I love it. The knowledge, the understanding, the wisdom piece. Um, my take on the wisdom part is that wisdom does. I think safety is an illusion, right? Um, so when hear wisdom, a lot of that is more so about. It's not necessarily. It's almost like we're using the past in order to talk about the future. There's no real safety in it. Um, but it's dope to have intelligently, right? To have a conversation about it, to have had those experiences, but being in the moment of it and being able to utilize it is it's just something different. Wisdom is super important. I personally wouldn't equate it to having some sort of safety. I think safety is an illusion. And then the knowledge and understanding of wisdom also take part on these different planes that we're discussing, because there's an intelligence to it, which for me personally, I like that's I've been taught this was like the intelligence side. Like you need to, know it with the knowledge. You need to understand it. And I spent exhaustive time doing it. And now you have the wisdom. So now there's a lot of theories, which essentially is what it is. Like wisdom intelligently is like this ability to figure out these different theories, and at some level to say like I don't want to do that at this point. Then you can go deeper into why you don't want to do that. You mentioned on that, and I felt it when you said it. The fear of heights, because I'm not a fan of heights. I'm not going to call it a fear, but I'm definitely not a fan to walk on top of this thing. But there are people who go up on top of those. What comes to mind an image is this Ethiopian. There's like a Ethiopian temple, right, where they have this Bible, one of the oldest Bibles, and like you have to transverse a cliff, like up in the sky, and you know, I don't know how thin the walkway is, but it's like these real thin walkways, and there's a priest that does this every day with no harness, he's just walking. Come on, like his experience, like this is normal. And I would imagine he's also saying that the reward at the top for me to do this every day is more than worth it, to where there is no fear involved. It's just straight the faith is the faith. We're not. Me logically hitting here would be like, well, what's the consequences? You mentioned consequence. What's the consequence of me walking up and down this hill? What's the probability of me doing this every day that I'm going to fall off at some point in time? Like these are the type of things that come with the intelligence and these theories, and I start to put these things together. When this guy is just like, I'm just walking up here and I'm just doing my thing, right? Which is happens to be, that image came to mind. So we get a chance but however, we can also apply this to those different parts, the heart part, right? The knowledge and the understanding and the wisdom within your heart, because oftentimes we can overlook that type of stuff, right? These feelings that come up. We spoke about feelings being a signal, and I probably skipped because I'm processing it, but it would be good to know what is the wisdom in your heart. What is it showing to you? At one point in time, the brother asked me, well, what about what I would call instincts, like your gut instincts? What is that telling you? How have we used the wisdom of the head to override that part, to override the heart part? Because according to, modernity, these things aren't, quote unquote important, right? We want to gauge these things based upon your bank account or letters. When I say letters, I mean your degrees and so on and so forth. But have you ever just met a person who has so much wisdom and they're just so heart oriented or gut oriented that you're like, man, this supersedes a lot of stuff, right? I have that feeling with a Beethoven, right? Beethoven doesn't have a degree, but he has a certain gut and heart instinct that it's hard not to be like, wisdom within that. And so we'll have conversations and it'll be to the point where he says, he'll be like, man, I can't even really explain it. I'm like, brother, you don't even have to. Like, we don't even have to put a word to this, what you're describing or this feeling that you have the ability to do, but it's worth all of that, right? Even my mother, I would put that, my mother and my father. I don't think my mother graduated the 6th or 7th grade, but you go out and try to outdo her on her gut instinct and heart instinct within business. You go out and start to talk to my father about spirituality, and he has not been to a seminary school, he hasn't been to temple, whatever it was, and not try quite under and allow him to explain it and be caught up in that moment. So there's like this intelligence thing that for me, it was just like I at times was real rigid on. I need to know, I need to understand, I need to do these theories. And I'm so hard-headed, I need to experience it too, right? This is rebellion aspect of it. Oh yeah, don't go in that room. What we going to the room for? Oh, well, you'll get punched in the face. Well, I could tussle a little bit. Let me go in that room and see what it feels like, right? And get it, and then come back out and say, yeah, you're gonna get punched in your face in that room. Like, just know that, just know I'm telling you to expect it. But there's some people who, have that gut and that heart-led way of being. And when you can start to put all that stuff in alignment, it makes a huge difference, right? So I definitely appreciated that talk, this reflection. I know the brother put a seriousness to it. I don't even think it's serious no more for me personally. I'm just starting to laugh at a lot of the things. Once you come to and shouts out to Mark. I saw Mark yesterday Christmas. We went over to my uncle's house for breakfast, and we were all there. And he said, man, there's something different about you. I said, what? He said, man, you walked in that room and he said, boy, your face changed. You're just happy. And I was like, I don't know about happy, but I definitely said, I'm not going to do things that I don't enjoy, right? I'm running that experiment. And so now as the conversations I'm having, everything that I'm engaging with, if I'm not doing it cheerfully with joy, I'm really starting to think about what it is, business and or otherwise. And that was one of the conversations that I had with Joe. He was like, so what if you did it this way? And it's like, you're right. Like, what if I did do this? So you did it the other way. Yep. Were you successful at it? Yes. What did it bring you? Right here with me having this conversation with you about it. Well, let's do it with joy. I wanted to quote this thing with Nietzsche. One of the things I was thinking about as far as reflections, and this was like a buzzer beater. My mastermind group were reading Jordan Peterson's The 12 Rules of Life. And he quoted Nietzsche in it, and it says, a person's strength can be measured by how much truth they're able to endure. And I mean, that it was in chapter 8, which chapter 8 is it says tell the truth. And it's like if you don't tell the truth, at least don't lie. That's essentially the theme of the book. So he mentioned this part. He's like, a person's strength can be measured by how much truth they're able to endure. That's a Nietzsche quote, which I love Nietzsche. If anybody has a chance to read any of his books or reflections, the philosopher. And it stayed with me this year and it stayed with me. Um, because truth is something that you don't argue, right? We're going to this holding truth part. Truth is something to me that I don't argue, and it isn't something that I win with, which I've been known to attempt to, right? But I'll give you the distinctions really, because I thought it was truth and it wasn't that. It's something that you hold. And if we go back to the Nietzsche quote, it says, not everyone has the same, I said, not everyone has the same capacity for it. Not everyone can hold the truth, right? How me and Joe met, one of the things that we spoke about, one of the things in that initiation, process, was that you meet people on the level that they're at. So don't go around trying to throw your truth on people and it's not the level that they're at, right? And so it forced me to really kind of slow down and separate three things that I actually have been blending for a while. And that was the facts, the truth, and ideals. And so Jordan Peterson in this book spoke about this part as well, where he was saying that facts are stable. He almost went to saying that facts are dead. Like there's nothing, you put a fact out there, it is what it is. Like if someone gets upset about it, it tells you more about where they are or what they got going on than it is you. And it also tells you about how much more convincing you have to do. If I say a fact and someone wants to convince otherwise, and I'm talking about what's a real fact, then I have to think about the amount of energy that it's going to take for me to even attempt to explain it. And then, that goes on to the time, so on and so forth. And it really talks about myself as well. Because facts are stable, they're verifiable, and they matter. Everybody knows me. But the facts alone, what I learned, they don't orient to a human life. Truth includes facts, but it's also lived experiences. So the emotion, the memory, the consequence, the responsibility, truth has a weight and it costs. This is just some of my reflections I wrote down. And then there's ideals, right? So the ideals are alive, they inspire, they organize meaning, but they're also dangerous when we forget what they are, right? So when an ideal can't be questioned and when it stops being tested against reality, it quietly becomes a god. That part in that book was like, what? And then it says, and gods demand sacrifice. So I want us to understand, like, my thought process surrounding it was like all of these ideals, which are separate from the truth and which are separate from fact that we come up with. This is what makes life almost worth living, are these different ideals that we have. I would imagine, especially if you're inspired, like you have these ideals. But the moment that I go to protect an ideal and I'm not trying it against the truth, if I'm not trying it against facts, it actually becomes my God. It's based on one axiom, right? So this goes back to that Nietzsche quote. Like, so some people have adopted these ideals, and so they're not able to get any more truth, right? This is I say this because this almost is giving me permission not to go back and forth with people, right? For a while, I'm like, why do I have to prove or do this? Once I've realized this, and this goes into that willful ignorance that I've been speaking about 2 to 3 years, but this kind of like really broke it down and resonated within my heart. I went into Toastmasters because I'm like, I'm not communicating properly. So I was doing it for other people because I was like, I want to communicate to people. So in this thing, and started studying human psychology and started studying all these other different things just to get to this understanding of the heart of where it's like I tell my kids, and this is why I love them so much, and I really use them against that. It's like, I know I speak English. That's what I tell Elijah. I know I speak English. So if there's any reason why it is that you didn't do, or you say you didn't understand me, there's more to it than that, and we can get to the root of that, right? It might be this rebellion spirit that we got going on, but it's not because you don't quite understand what I have to say. Right now, Paul has a thing where he says, "I don't know," and I'm like, "Listen, hold on, I know you know," because you're telling me you're using words like impossible. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm a whatever, whatever. But when you say you're not, when you're saying you don't know, what is that? It's off times on. I get the chance to look at them. It's like, are you saying that you're frustrated? Well, with this line of questioning that I'm doing, but I know I speak English, so we go to that point. So I was originally just using facts to protect an ideal, could have been my ideal. And when that happened, something broke, right? It was because truth doesn't just live in logic. And here's the thing. I was saying that there's only one truth. And now I'm drawing a distinction to it. Like, because people used to bother me. And when I realized that it bothered me when people said it to me, I had to check myself, because it was just like when people would say, "Oh, I'm speaking my truth." And I'm like, there's only one truth. Nah, there's a fact, and this person is living their truth, or their perception of reality. So it's the truth to them. And what I'd failed to do was fail to gain clarification and understanding of where they were coming from. If in fact is if that's what I was stating, if I wanted to communicate, right? So it took for me to empty out all these ideals, right? Because they don't have to understand these distinctions. Nobody does. But if I'm saying that I want to be in connection with other people, first be in connection with myself, saying, okay, Michael, maybe you're holding these ideals too sacred. So I get to empty out these ideals and take it on. Now, the thought process was, this is where the rigidity came from, where I wasn't doing it, was because, like, well, I don't know if I take on this truth, or if I hear this truth, their truth, whatever, then I'm not going to come back to me. Right. So a lot of this stuff is like me just protecting me. This is the inflection part of it. So now I said, well, don't you always come back to you? And the answer is always yes. That's why I always come back to, like, I was thinking that way, right? One of my axioms is, or one of my things that I say to myself is if I could go back and tell my older self something about this, if I only had one thing to say, it would be like, continue on your journey. Like, stay in your journey. Don't go to, if somebody's going to say this is what's real and this is what's what, no, just stay on your journey, because whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it the God, whether you want to call it the universe, the most high, whatever it is, it's right there. They're giving you your unique journey, unique path, right? And so whenever I realized that there's something that I disliked, is because I wasn't in integrity with that, right? Not to say that I'm this perfect human being, because nobody's perfect on their journey. I don't think anyways. Anyone's perfect on their journey, but stay on it. So I have to allow myself to empty out. And that's what I'm telling myself, so that I understand, so I can understand this person's truth, right? It's tough for me to say it now. There's a part of me that doesn't like it now when I say of another person's truth, just because of this, how I've held this ideal for so long. But when you start to, and this is as any advisor, when I start to understand and know a person's truth, right, the easier it is. And once they understand, I think it was Jim Rohn that said that people don't care what you know until they know that you understand something. So I'm butchering the phrase. Yeah, know that you care. So how do they know that I care if I'm not emptying myself to actually listen and ask questions, get into question mode, and understand where it is they're coming from? Doesn't mean me being in connection with someone doesn't mean I have to agree or align or whatever it is. It's just that I'm listening to it. Okay, cool. and we can go on from there and see what we create together within that moment. Right? Because what could come out of that could be even off times. What I'm noticing, if we're both in connection and we're both able to have this, what comes out of that is even better than what it was that I could imagine going into it. It can be exceedingly greater, to use the word from the book, if I do that. So that inflection of what, the reflection and inflection together, and how the projection is, okay, I get a chance to do that. And then next question to somebody else who may be listening to it, like, well, who do you do it to? Whoever I give favor to, like whoever, like whatever it is. How do you determine that? I don't know, right? I might have had some good pre-workout, a good gym thing. I got time on my hands and we could really explore something. But also, a lot of things can happen within 10 to 12 minutes. Just like I had this conversation with Joe. It was a 20 to 12-minute conversation, and I've seen him do it with a lot of people before. A lot of things can happen in 5 to 10 minutes if we just sit there, right? I'm in like this. I know our time is going. I had a conversation earlier this week, and it's only because I received it and was open to it, with a young man. I don't know if he listens to this, but if he does, I don't think I'm not going to say your name, so it doesn't, but we crossed paths a long time ago, right. So I was maybe over a decade ago, and it was me being on my unique path and being in integrity with who I was at the time. And it was a tumultuous relationship in my mind. If I were to reflect on it, right? Not that I resented it. I was just like, oh boy, you was rough, Mike. Well, Joe knows Mike, 15 years ago. Like, I wasn't, it was a rough, the edges could have got smoothed out. But it was still Mike coming from integrity. It wasn't meant to hurt anybody in that kind of way. It was just that's how I could express myself, right? In my true self. Because that's one thing, shouts out to my pops, always be your true self. And my grandfather, that's who really instilled that. And so it would be rough. Grown men have said it was rough. Grown women have said it was rough. So for this person who's a lot younger than he was a child, I would call him a child for having a habit. But he came to me and we were having a quick conversation, the regular, how you doing? It's been a while. Everything going good, blah, blah, that sort of conversation. And he stopped and he looked at me and he said, man, you know what? Thank you. And I was like, what's going on? Thank you. Well, he said, I got to thank you. He said, because you really taught me how to be a man. These are the words he used, right? He's like, you taught me how to be a man. You taught me how to stand up straight, how to shake hands, how to look people in their eyes, and to just be, the words he was using, like to be strong. Like these were the words he was using. And Elijah was sitting right there too when he said it to me. And Elijah was like, because Elijah knows a guy. Elijah was like, man, I thought y'all hated each other. That's what he said. And I said, no, Elijah, that's not really the case. I said, we were both at a different stage in life. And here's a young man that was attempting to be a man, and I was going to be a man in integrity regardless of the situation, right? So maybe it may look on the outside that I'm being this tough or stern or whatever it was, but everything, the way I expressed it, everything was heartfelt, right? This is how I grew up. This is how, shouts out to my mom. Yeah. This was heartfelt. So it may, to some people, like we may think that this heartfelt thing is this nurturing and I want to save people and I don't want them to do it. That wasn't the way that I expressed love at the time, right? Or my understanding or how to express it. It was to be so in my own, loving myself that I was going to be in integrity with myself, and it's going to come across. And those who want it are going to want it, and those who don't don't. Because what I figured out, whether you're people pleasing or whether you're being yourself, 50% of the people might not like you anyways, right? Like, really, it's 20%. 20% of the people aren't going to like you anyways, right? So if I do this within integrity, I make it look back now because I've gained these skills of having conversations, which really was all that I was doing. I gained these skills of having conversations that I can say it a little differently. However, back then, how it came out is how it was going to come out. I love you anyways. No hard feelings, right? That's how my mother would do it. That's how that side of the family was like, I love you, I love you, but I got to tell you, these are the hard conversations that we have to have. And that developed trust. But I wouldn't have known that he felt the same way until he came back and said it. So I want to say again to that guy, I appreciate you. I love you. And I'm glad that we could have had that conversation. Right. So
I think that was
reflection.
great.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great, man. I love that. It really illuminates the reflection and the growth, right? And it also steps into the what comes next. I mean, if we were just to take that one testimonial right there, I mean, you said a lot of things that deserve unpacking, and I know we come close to this, the closeout right now. But that one conversation just meant so much. It really did. One conversation meant so much because it talks to the authenticity that you are. You embody authenticity. You embody it. You just do, Mike. You're authentic. You're authentic. Whether you got rough edges or smooth edges, you are authentically you. And whether you consider yourself to be perfect or not perfect, you're imperfectly perfect. You just, man, you are you. And like you touched on that conversation about truth and, whether a person believes in there's one truth or there's many truths. My belief is there's one truth. And maybe I don't understand all of that one truth, but I do agree that each and every last one of us have this one image of what our belief, our standard, our truth is. And I don't think there's anything wrong with walking in that. If you have the capacity to gain, new skills, new understanding, new insight, and to make adjustments, I think that that's a good thing. If you don't, if you know how to use what you have and you can work with in your life, I think that can be a good thing too. There's a thing that we've talked about before where we said words have meaning and words matter. And I agree 100%. But you know what else I agree with? That words, meanings don't matter. I believe in that 100%. It all depends on which way we're going because sometimes it doesn't really matter the words that you use because it doesn't represent the truth that a person believes. Maybe they don't know how to use the appropriate words. And you have to understand the meaning behind the language because everybody doesn't have the same skill level. Everybody doesn't have the same knowledge. Everybody doesn't have the same capacity of language and conversation and communication. So sometimes we have to feel their vibration. We have to feel their flow. We have to feel the essence of the individual, the being. Sometimes a whole lot can be discerned between the shake of a hand or the look in the eyes or the gesture of the head moving up, moving down, or laying down, or the posture of the individual. Sometimes there's so much more than the words that an individual is able to use. But for those of us who can clarify well and understand the words that we're using and the intent that we're using, words do matter. So be careful. You can destroy somebody with the power of your tongue. You can destroy or you can uplift them. You can save them. So in the end, I'm loving this story because it's like, whoa, these two people, you and this individual, were talking two different languages in the eyesight of your son, who said, "What's up, pops?" just a few moments ago. He was tuning in to this station, right? Um, he's like, "I thought you guys didn't like each other," and your stance was, "No, I'm going to be a man." He was attempting to be a man, and somewhere in the middle of all that stuff, which may look like chaos to somebody on the outside, there was the birth of newness, relationship development. And so, what do we do when we take that to the psychologist? How do they figure that out? How do they figure out if I were to put that in underneath the microscope and try to figure out, oh, are these two going to be A, relatable to each other, or B, non-relatable to each other? And over the course of the span of that time, might be saying, hey, they are non-relatable to each other. But then when the growth actually takes place, it's like, yo, you're the best thing that has ever happened to me. I thank you for just being you. And it just overshadows every single thing that we learn and that we teach. because life is about the living. It's not about the dead. And the minute we say something, that word dies. It's about the living, the experience, the reflection, the growth. So what comes next? For me, growing still, illuminating still, having more conversations like this with Mike, more conversations with others, and doing the best that I possibly can do to be a brighter representation of myself, to walk in my own shoes. And as Mike, as you pointed out, one of my first speeches when I got on this trek 4 or 5 years ago, I did it for the Boca Raton, some type of walk or something. I don't remember what it's called now. But my first speech was make truth your reality. So whatever that looks like to some, these are my final comments. Whatever that looks like to you out there, what your truth looks like to you, make it your reality. Reflect on your own life. Be your own you. Or don't be. But I'm just praying that you find growth in the words that we've given over the course of this past year, and that something here has either pissed you off so much that you want to grow and be better, or you want to prove me wrong or prove Mike wrong so bad that it causes you to grow, or you found something that causes you to want to grow and you want to do because you just like what was said by Mike, or you like what was said by me, or somewhere in between. You had to go research something because you didn't understand, because you disagreed and you want to grow. Whatever it is, it don't matter to me. It don't matter. Just do it. That's my prayer for you, is you do it and you become better. Because it's not always the person that's out to save you that actually saves. Sometimes it's the guy out there that says, you're never going to make it if you keep acting like that. That pulls you out of the fire. Much love to all y'all. That's my words, Mike.
Yeah, let me finish my take on
Do your thing, brother. I'm with you.
Listen, facts inform, truth orients, ideals inspire. Nobody's coming to save you. And so that's probably where I'm not necessarily aligned with that. No one's coming to save you. No one's coming to destroy you. It's you. How you relate to it, how you receive it or not, either or. Like, that's the walk. That's the path. That's it. And I hope that sits or doesn't sit well. It doesn't matter, but that's my truth that I'm speaking. And I'm done sacrificing the truth, my truth. So that's how the year ends for me. Happy, walk into this happy new year. You all be safe, man. Be safe, be enlightened. Shouts out to Elijah. I see only knows Eli that checked in. I love to Elijah, man. I'm loving the man that you're becoming. I'm proud of you 1000%. I know we joke and you want to try to run me over, but definitely loving the man that you're becoming. And so I just want that to be said. All right, I'm out. I love y'all. Brother, I love you too. Everyone.
Love you too, man.
Yeah, be blessed, man. Peace. Oh, see you next year. See you next year. God willing and the creek don't rise.
Yo, check the mic, 1, 2, Beacon is the name. Lights up the city, ain't playing no games. Joel Simmons and Michael Seville, the vision is clear. Dropping knowledge, conquering all of your fear. Beacon, that's the sound of the future. The main hosts are here, they built the whole structure. Community strong, we rise from the ground, the beacon power up. Yeah, time to look up.